You don't have a discipline problem. You have an identity problem. This is the thing nobody says clearly enough, and it's the reason every system eventually fails. You can build the perfect morning routine. You can construct the ideal habit stack. You can read every book on behavior change and understand the mechanism of discipline precisely. And still, it won't hold, because behavior doesn't drive identity. Identity drives behavior. What you consistently do is not a product of what you know. It is a product of who you believe yourself to be. When your identity says you are someone who doesn't follow through, every system you build is fighting that belief. The belief is stronger than the system. The belief always wins. This is not abstract. Watch how it works. You start a new discipline. For a few days it goes well. Then a difficult moment arrives, a temptation, a setback, a day that doesn't cooperate. In that moment, something in you says, "This isn't really who I am," and you stop. Not because you lack willpower, because your identity claimed you back. The way out is not a better system. The way out is a different identity. And identity doesn't change through declarations. It changes through evidence, specifically through the accumulation of small actions that cast votes for the person you're deciding to become. This video is about how that works, precisely, not as inspiration, as a mechanism. The identity you currently hold was built the same way the new one will be. Nobody arrives at an identity through a single event. You didn't become who you are now from one experience. You became who you are from thousands of small, repeated choices that over time accumulated into a story. A story about who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve, and what you do when things are hard. Most of that story was written without your conscious participation. You were young. Things happened. You learned from them, what you were good at, what you weren't, what was safe to want and what wasn't. The story became the operating system. And the operating system has been running your behavior largely on autopilot ever since. The critical insight is this: the story is not fact, it is interpretation. The events were real, the meaning you assigned to them, the conclusions you drew about yourself, those were choices. They felt inevitable at the time because you were young or under pressure or lacked the context to see them differently. But they are not carved into you. They are written in you, and what is written can be rewritten. The person you are today is not the final version, it is the current version, built from the interpretations of past experience. The person you become next will be built from the interpretations of new experience, experience you choose, actions you take, evidence you accumulate. You are not discovering who you are deciding. Identity shifts through evidence, not declaration. The single most common error in self-improvement is the declaration. You make a statement. I am someone who wakes up early. I am someone who doesn't quit. I am disciplined. And you expect the declaration to produce the behavior. Occasionally, it creates a temporary surge of motivation, but it doesn't change the identity. Because the identity runs on evidence, not words, your subconscious mind is a sophisticated pattern recognition system. It is watching what you actually do. Every time you say you'll do something and don't, it updates its model of you. You are someone who doesn't follow through. Every time you do what you said you'd do, even a small thing, even something nobody sees, it updates its model again. You are someone who keeps their word. Over time, this accumulated evidence becomes a belief. The belief becomes automatic. The automatic belief drives behavior. the behavior generates more evidence. The cycle runs in one direction or the other, depending entirely on which evidence is accumulating. This means the path to identity change is not motivational speeches. It is not vision boards. It is the consistent delivery of small, specific promises to yourself, made and kept over time, with no audience except your own pattern recognition system. The promises must be small enough to keep. That is the entire design principle. Not impressive, not dramatic. Small enough that failure is not an option, and large enough that keeping them means something. You said you would wake up at 6. You woke up at 6. Evidence deposited. One vote cast for the person you're deciding to become. The identity you're building needs a name. Vague aspirations produce vague identities. I want to be more disciplined. I want to be healthier. I want to be more successful. These are directions, not destinations. They are clouds, not landmarks. And you cannot navigate to a cloud. The shift that changes everything is specificity, not I want to be more disciplined, but I am someone who does the work every morning before the world makes its demands. Not I want to be healthier, but I am someone who moves my body every day without negotiation. Not I want to be more successful, but I am someone who builds one thing consistently for as long as it takes. The specificity does two things. First, it gives your pattern recognition system a precise target. When the identity is specific, every action is either consistent with it or it isn't. The ambiguity disappears. You either did the morning work or you didn't. You either moved today or you didn't. The evidence is clear, the update is precise. Second, specificity makes the identity actionable right now. You cannot act on, I want to be more disciplined. There is no concrete behavior attached to it. But you can act on, I wake up at 6 and do the work before I look at my phone. That is a behavior. That behavior done consistently becomes evidence. The evidence becomes identity. Write the identity you're building in specific behavioral terms, not aspirations, not adjectives, behaviors. What does this person do every day that you are not yet doing consistently? Write it in present tense as if it is already true. Not, I want to wake up early, I wake up at 6. Not, I'm trying to read more, I read every day. The present tense is not a lie, it is a target stated in the language of fact that your pattern recognition system can navigate toward. The gap between who you are and who you're becoming is just actions you haven't taken yet. There is a version of the identity shift that sounds daunting. You look at the person you're trying to become and you see the distance between here and there, and the distance feels enormous. The discipline seems beyond you. The consistency seems impossible for someone with your history of starting and stopping. This feeling is a measurement error. You are measuring the gap in terms of character, as if the person you want to become has something you don't. More willpower, more drive, some quality that was built in from the beginning. That measurement is wrong. The person you want to become is simply a person who has accumulated more evidence. They have more deposits of kept promises, more days of doing the thing, more evidence that they are someone who follows through. That's the whole difference. Not character, not talent, evidence. Which means the gap is not a gap in who you are, it is a gap in what you have done so far. And what you have done so far is the most changeable thing about you. Every action you take today that is consistent with the identity you're building is a deposit, not a big deposit, one vote. But votes accumulate. And at some point, and this is the part that people who haven't experienced it don't believe until it happens, the accumulated votes change the belief. Without ceremony, without a dramatic moment of transformation, you simply realize one day that you are no longer fighting yourself to do the thing. You do it because it's who you are. The identity has shifted. That shift doesn't come from a decision made once. It comes from small decisions made thousands of times, which means it is available to you today, in the next hour. In the next choice, act as the person you're becoming. Before you feel like them, the final piece is the hardest and also the most important. It is this. You have to act from a new identity before the identity fully exists. Most people wait to feel like the new person before they act like the new person. They want to feel disciplined before they do the disciplined thing. They want to feel confident before they take the confident action. They want to feel like someone who builds before they do the building. The feeling never arrives on schedule. The action precedes the feeling. Always. Here is what actually happens in identity change. You act first from the identity you're building rather than the one you currently hold. The action produces evidence. The evidence updates the belief. The updated belief makes the next action slightly easier, which produces more evidence. The feeling, the sense of being the person you're becoming, arrives somewhere in this cycle, usually long after the actions began. This means every morning when you do not feel like doing the thing, that morning is not an obstacle to the identity shift. That morning is the identity shift. The act of doing it anyway, in the absence of the feeling, is exactly the evidence your pattern recognition system needs. You are not waiting for the motivation to arrive so you can act. You are acting so the new identity can arrive. Do the thing the new you would do. Today, in the exact circumstances you're in. Not when you feel ready, not when the conditions improve. Now. As the person you're deciding to become, even before that person fully exists. The identity is not waiting for you to discover it. It is waiting for you to build it. One action at a time, beginning with the next one.